Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Let's get rolling. As many of you know, I started out in university as a journalism major, but then for my master's and PhD, I went into sociology because I realized that journalism would not let me do what I really wanted to do, and that is to become an opinion journalist and a columnist. That would come many years later. I did not want to be a quote unquote beat reporter. When I recognized that, I said, nope, journalism is not for me. Well, in retrospect, I think it is for me, but I need to take it and couch it in my knowledge as a sociologist. And so in this podcast, I have been blending my sociology, my communism, and my journalism. That will again take place in what I am about to do today, especially my own journalism. I will try to be as even-handed as possible. By even-handed, I do not mean neutral. There is a fallacy which exists in the public and which is replicated by many news sources, that media outlets are supposed to be neutral. That is simply not true. Media outlets are supposed to be fair and balanced, as Fox News once said, even though Fox News was perhaps the worst representation of being fair and balanced I have ever seen. But being fair and balanced means sometimes that if a particular individual is doing something bad or wrong, you need to take a stand against them. And so in this podcast, I have frequently taken stands against individuals, organizations, and nations that, in my view, have behaved in an unethical fashion. And so here, I will be talking about a country that I have discussed time and time again, namely the Zionist entity of Israel. In this case, it is a threat from some people who will apparently be attending the Paris Olympics later this year. And so I will read to you this article. I will put it up on the screen so you can read it along with me. And hopefully we will be able to come to some understanding of the subject together. It is not a pleasant topic. I don't like having to get into these kinds of things. It's not what I enjoy doing. I would rather discuss things that are more cheerful, but that's not the world that we live in. So here goes. The headline from the Jerusalem Post: arrive in France, we'll kill you. Israeli Olympians threatened ahead of Paris Games. Israel will be sending armed Shin Bet agents to Paris to prepare for the largest ever security operation for Israeli athletes at the Olympic Games. It is written by Matilda Heller. It is dateline September 21st, 2024, which is today. And so here is the article. Israeli Olympians taking part in Paris 2024 have received death threats, hate messages, and vitriol online over the last few days, Israeli and foreign media reported on Saturday. Walla reported that over the weekend, Israeli athletes received online messages written in poor Hebrew. Well, obviously that's because they are not Israelis. Many also received calls from foreign numbers. On Thursday and Friday, 15 athletes and their teams received identical death threats via email, warning them they would be killed if they arrived in France, Walla reported. The anonymous email said that the sender intended to harm any Israeli presence at the Olympics, and said that if any Israeli delegates attended, they would be harmed. The email threatened to repeat the action of Munich 1972 and told the athletes to prepare for the Intifada. Intifada is an Arabic word which translates into English as uprising. During the March 1972 Olympics, 11 Israelis were murdered by the Palestinian terrorist group Black September. I remember them well. A ceremony, the date and location of which are not yet known, will take place during the Paris Games to commemorate those killed, reported French publication Le Point. The chairwoman of the Israel Olympic Committee, Yael Arad, said, "It was clear to us that such a troll would come. We prepared for it. We instructed the athletes on how to act when it comes, and we had many conversations and meetings on the subject." While it reported, the messages and calls have continued over the weekend. The Israeli Olympic team has landed in Paris and was met with high security presence. The British publication, The Telegraph, announced in an exclusive on Saturday that Israel would be sending armed Shin Bet, which is Israel's security agency agents, to Paris to prepare for the largest ever security operation for Israeli athletes at the Olympic Games. Israel's culture and sports minister, Miki Zohar, said in The Telegraph, "We know that there are threats against the team, but we don't want to talk about it." However, he continued by saying that security preparations for the games had started a year ago and that the team's security budget had been doubled to compensate for increased threats against Jews and Israelis as a result of the Israel-Hamas war. Former Shin Bet chief Yaakov Perl told The Telegraph that Israeli officers were most probably already scanning the area in France to determine the threats, and that the months of planning were one of the toughest security challenges Israel's delegations have had in their history. 88 Israeli athletes will be participating in the games. All will receive security details from Shin Bet, as will their staff, Zohar told The Telegraph. Not all would have a bodyguard, he added. "We try our best to make sure the athletes feel free, but also safe and not afraid. We don't want them to notice the security guards too much," he said. A former Shin Bet officer, Lee R. Ackerman, told The Telegraph that Israeli security guards would be equipped with weapons and technologies and will be assisted by local security and police forces. France has heightened its security ahead of the games, locking down parts of the city so that people will require permits to enter, reported the BBC. The opening ceremony of the Olympics will be manned by around 40,000 security personnel, police, and gendarmes in order to protect the 10,500 athletes. La Pointe noted that substantial security service was planned, in particular, for Israel's football teams' training sessions taking place on July 21st, 23rd, and 26th. Ackerman said that security for the Israeli team will need to stretch from the second of landing in France to the moment of returning home. Of course, it is not possible to go into detail about the security methods, but the combination of Israeli experience and knowledge, together with the cooperation of local security forces, provides an excellent and complete answer to the security of the delegation, Ackerman said to The Telegraph. An unnamed diplomatic official told The Telegraph that the security cooperation between Israel and France ahead of the games is excellent. Former Chief Pearl added that the threat could arise from anywhere and that danger was inevitable, saying, It can be Hamas or other terrorists, that Iran is behind almost everything, and France is of particular concern due to the level of anti-Semitism here. French police arrested on Friday a man on terrorism charges who was accused of trying to murder a taxi driver with a knife while expressing support for Palestinian terrorist group Hamas, a source at the terrorism prosecutor's office said. In recent months, Israel has foiled many attacks by Iran and other terrorist groups abroad. Israel's National Security Council published a report in March saying that the risk of terrorism for Israelis abroad was particularly high, with emphasis on the Olympics and Eurovision as being high-risk events. Eurovision, for those who are not familiar with it, is a European talent show, to be simple. This increased danger, said Zohar, was not just a threat to Jews and Israelis, but against everyone. They hate the free world. What evidence do they have of that? They hate the free world. I would like to see evidence for that. Back to the article. And everyone who believes in democracy, ditto. What evidence do they have that these people hate anyone who believes in democracy? That is simply rhetoric, and I don't think that anybody should take it seriously. They hate Christians, they hate Jews, and anyone who doesn't share their beliefs. That is definitely not true. In Iran, Christians and Jews who live there are treated very well. The same thing is true in Gaza. The Palestine Olympic Committee, POC, on Friday, called for a ban on Israeli athletes from participating in the Paris Olympics, the Telegraph reported, citing the group's anger regarding Israel's human rights violation. And that ends the story. And so back to me in full face. Again, I don't want to see anyone hurt. That is never my intention. I think everyone should wish the best for everyone under all circumstances. However, if there was a time for this type of activity, Israel should have anticipated that it would be now, and apparently they have. Now, I am not going to say how I feel about what these people are planning on doing. I think saying that would be entirely inappropriate in a podcast. I will say, however, that I understand it. I do understand it, and I think that everyone should be able to bracket or set aside their own personal views and try to look at it from the perspective of the people who are making the statement. That is something that in sociology we call by the German term verstehen, which literally means to understand. But in Max Weber's writings, he used it to refer to a particular type of understanding that one got by empathizing with the people that one was studying. And so even if you are not studying these people, neither am I, we should be able to understand what they are saying and to empathize with why they are saying it. They are angry that so many Gazans have needlessly died, have needlessly lost their homes, are still needlessly dying, and that Muslims in other parts of greater West Asia are still dying, are still losing their lives, all because of a colonial power, Israel, and how it has made its home right in the heart of greater West Asia. And so without giving away my own personal view on this, which I will not do, I will simply express to you my hope that nobody gets hurt. I don't want to see anyone hurt or harmed. I do, however, want to see Israel constrained in some way. to stop doing what they are doing, to change their right-wing policy, to stop trying to be a bully in a part of the world that they do not come from. Israelis are not from Greater West Asia or the Middle East. They are invaders, just like the British and the French and the Portuguese were invaders to the Americas. They never belonged there. Whether they belong there now, again, is an issue I will not touch right now. But I hope that you will all keep up with the subject, to track it down where the best way you can, to follow up on sources and see if they are justified, to only rely upon reputable sources, not upon conspiracy theory websites. And I can tell you there are many of them for the time being. This has been Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Metarealism. Have a pleasant day and an even better day tomorrow.